I have substance issues different than other people, other men or women or whatever. And so the Democrats divide us up into these sections, and they call it intersectionality. Well, what happens with intersectionality is that you run into each other. On the road of victims, you all start to collide with each other. So you're on this road, you're all intersectionals, and you start to bump into each other. This is what you're seeing with this Democrat resolution that took a week. Now, I know there's some people out there who think they're so smart, who want to talk about the 23 Republicans who voted against it. Well, the truth of the matter is, what they voted against was that it wasn't a resolution against anti-Semitism, it was a resolution against hate. Well, what do you need a resolution against hate? Everyone's against hate, with the exception of the small few people who are hateful. We already know who they are, right? So this intersection, that's what happened with the Democrats. They ran into a problem because all the victims started running into each other along this road. So the Jewish people who believed in anti-Semitism or anti-Israel rhetoric, they ran into the African-American women of color because Omar and Tlaib were Muslim, were women of color. So the Jewish people ran into the women of color. The women of color ran into the people who are against racism, and everyone started bumping into each other. And this is the problem with intersectionality. Well, here's the problem with when you try to say that every culture that comes over here is going to be good. This is what happens when you want a diverse culture, because you believe that everyone brings something good to America, right? So what you have happening, you see it happening with the border situation, right? You have people that are coming here. Of course, John Kelly yesterday famously said at a speech that he was making that he understands that not all people coming across the border are coming here as criminals. We already know that, John Kelly. He also said that he understands that people coming here from other countries south of the border are coming here for a better life. We all know that too. No one's ever pushed back on that narrative because we know it to be factual. What we push back on is the fact that if you let people just sneak in here and then let them stay here, you don't know who they are. That's all we've pushed back on. So anybody that says you're a racist for thinking that, or you're scared of brown people for thinking that, is really stupid. But they're in this intersectionality world. And they believe that just because you're brown, coming from south of the border, you're going to be on my team, and this, that, and the other. So it's the same thing with Muslims. Just because you come here from another country, you're Muslim, you come here, you become part of our group, our intersectional group, because you are a victim too, because there's anti-Islamic, there's Islamic phobia out there. So you become part of this intersectional group of victims. Well, here's where you bump into each other, and it's going to happen sooner than you think. In Minnesota right now, Ethiopian gangs, not gangs from the homeland where you had ancient rivalries at work here in the States that you had with the Irish and the Italians that came here and other sorts of groups, European Jews that came here, all of them brought intersectional rivalries or rivalries, historic rivalries with them to this country in the early 1800s, early 1900s, late 1800s. So they carried on those battles, but once the generation died out, the battle stopped. Unless you're in the mafia and things like that. That's neither here nor there. What they're seeing in Minnesota right now with Somalians that are elected Miss Omar is that they're now gang members. The M16th Street Gang. These are not historical warfare between groups of people bringing from their native land. These are people who are being subjected to American culture and thinking it's cool to be a gang fights and major gunfights and things going on. So here's another story. That's gonna show itself to be plain later on because those groups are gonna start to bump into each other. Well, here's another story. In England, this is happening. In England, hundreds of students and their Muslim parents protested outside a primary school in Britain. Guess what they protested, Brett Barney? They didn't protest Islamophobia. They didn't protest having to not being able to wear a hijab or having to open their ID up. They didn't protest having liquor or anything like that. You know what they protested? They protested a school in Britain. Hundreds of students and Muslim parents protested a school in Britain, a primary school in Britain, over an LGBT-centered curriculum. I want you to spin that around your heads, all you Democrats out there, because eventually this idea that you're all the same because you're black and brown or LGBT and you're all victims of the same white supremacist racist country, what's going to happen is culture is going to step in. And what you're going to find is the same Talibs and the same Omars that you think are on your side now, their culture is going to step in when they say, whoa, wait a minute. LGBT? No, 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 because it's actually, if it's Quranic not to support gay lifestyles. It's actually in the Quran, just like it's in the Bible. Now, you can make an argument about whether that's right or wrong. I'm not here to defend it or not defend it. I'm actually telling you that intersectionality will run into problems because it's going to run into culture before it runs into race, creed, or anything else. It's going to run into culture because in Britain, hundreds of students and parents protested a primary school in Britain. They were all Muslim and they were protesting LGBT-centered curriculum. That's what happens to intersectionality. It eventually collapses on itself. It's the Shelley Winter Show on the New Talk 106.7. It's time to go to Haviland Express Loop Traffic Center with my brother, Matthew Dorr.